we'll look at endgames for Class B players. That's 16 to 1800. So pretty strong.
Yay.
We'll look at some king and pawn, rook and pawn, minor piece endgames, all of those. Alright, so after slogging through the last part, you should have more endgame knowledge you might have thought possible. As a B player, finish up the basics. B for basics. Let's see.
I tried to review it a little bit, the Lucina, and but
Philidor.
I didn't finish with the Philidor, and I need to actually do it in chess base, just so I remember better. But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Alright, anyways, I'll ignore all the stuff he's saying. He talks a lot about when he was an A player or B player and such. Alright, so we learned about opposition and the square of the pawn, outside pass pawns, all sorts of stuff, trebuchet. Okay, let's talk about other stuff. King and 2 healthy pawns versus 1 king. So it'll be king and 2 pawns against 1 king, which is almost always winning, right? We've already seen in part 4 that a king and 2 double pawns is a win, as long as you don't lose one of the double pawns immediately. With that in mind, it's logical to assume that 2 non-double pawns should be even more decisive. Indeed, such situations are usually trivial wins, but there are 2 cases that might pose problems. One is if they're split pawns, and another if they're connected pawns. When you're 2 pawns up, the only way your opponent will survive is if you blunder into stalemate, or one of your pawns is lost. This lost pawn scenario usually occurs when the stronger side's king is too far from the action, leaving the poor pawns to fend for themselves. However, sometimes pawns can defend each other, or themselves. Alright, let's show an example already. Like this. Pretty bad king for white there. And we got 2 pawns. We'll make it black to move. Rule: 2 connected pass pawns can defend themselves against a lone king. A lot of people already know this even before they get to Class B, but the white king isn't participating. It doesn't even matter, because this king can never take these pawns. King e4, king b7. If you ever take, then I'm going to queen by force. So if you ever have 2 connected pass pawns like this, they can never go take your bottom pawn, because then it'll force a queen. And so if black doesn't take, because he knows that, then the white king will come in and it'll be a pretty easy win, as you could imagine. Alright, so what about if they're split up, though? Like here. We'll put the king here. He puts the king down here. And like this.
I am not bored, night skies.
Maybe he meant like chessboard. You look like a chessboard.
I may look bored, but I am not bored.
So it'll be black to play here. Now, 2 pass pawns on the same rank, but separated by 1 square, have the ability to defend themselves from attacks by the enemy king. When the king attacks one, you push the other, and the attacked pawn suddenly becomes poison. That pawn is poison. So let's say king h5, attacking your pawn. All you got to do is push the other pawn. And again, we can't take this pawn because we'll queen.
Right.
And you also can't approach this pawn from the side because it's illegal. So you can't do anything with black here. You can't take the pawn because that's obviously going to queen. If you go back, I'll bring my king up. Now this is important. You should go here to have the same scenario that we had at the start, when they're on the same rank. So now if he attacks this, we can go here. And it's the same situation. The pawns defend each other. If you don't play h5 here, then you actually might lose your pawn, right? Now it's too late. So make sure you push the pawn when you can.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So that you can step up and threaten to queen, so they can't take you.
2 that are threatening. Instead of king and pawn endgames, why doesn't the book talk about more difficult endgames, like e4 black to play and mate.
That is tough. I don't know why it doesn't do that. Maybe that's a different book that he wrote. Yeah. All right, so that's that. Real rap. Let's look at this. See if the chat has anything insightful to say. Other than inciting anger.
Toilet Break Chess, I don't know if you answered this. He says, is the knight better than the bishop in an endgame? I guess it depends.
That's not related to what we're looking at right now.
Well.
But we will look at some minor piece endgames soon. Generally, bishops are better than knights. Bishops are always a little better than knights, like in general.
Pam says, scroll out. All right, let me real quick. And then you can keep going, though. Let user play Karen. Oh, your tummy's... Oh, what?
Come on, it's all right.
You can't get that stressed out about playing a chess game.
Yeah, you guessed all those moves that I wanted, Pam.
I know.
More than once you guessed.
Look, you guessed them better than me, and you saw me hanging my queen left and right.
And her opponent's hanging a queen, too. Even they're even higher rated. So come on.
Yeah, come on. Don't be shy.
All right, so here black to play. And somebody in the chat said this looks even better for white, but this is actually a draw. Mr. Hornsby. This is actually a draw with black to play. Black can force a draw since one of the pawns will fall. All right, let's see how. King h5. Thought I made it black to play. King h5. And e5. So now if we take the pawn, we'll lose. Like we saw earlier.
Oh,
so
yeah.
all we have to do is go back. Exclam. The big difference between this position and the previous one, when the pawns only had one file apart, is pretty clear. In that case, the advance of the f-pawn covered the g6 square and forced the black king to step straight backwards, where it poses no threat to the advanced pawn. In this example, however, the king threatens to win the pawn with king f5. If you move your king up and I play king f5, and then you push, I can take. You push again, I can catch your pawn because I'm in the square.
Oh, okay.
Whereas you couldn't threaten the pawn before because this pawn covered that square. You couldn't attack the pawn without going all the way around in front. By that time, we had time to push our h-pawn.
You don't like when black goes first in positions like this, John?
Tough. Yeah, so one file apart is this almost certain win, but with two files apart, black has drawing chances. Yeah, he even just gives king f3. Again, I talked about if takes here, and then we're in the square.
Yeah.
And again, because it's a rook pawn, it's a draw. If it wasn't a rook pawn, we could go here and then keep going to the right. But it's a rook pawn, so we can't. Right. Now let's look at a similar position, but slightly different.
So with that position that you just had there, the beginning position, before we move on.
Here.
Yeah, so it seems like black has to first get rid of the e-pawn, then, right or no?
Well, black has to win a pawn.
It doesn't matter which, because I thought since it was a rook pawn left, they can just go get in the corner.
Yeah, but if you try to go win my e-pawn right now, I can defend it.
Right.
So the only logical move here for black is this.
Right, okay.
Because it threatens the pawn. But then after e5, we can't take the pawn because he'll queen. So then we just have to go back to win that pawn.
Okay.
Which he can't push because we'll take it. And so then we can just approach and take it, and we'll be in time to catch the h-pawn.
All right.
So here the example will be slightly different. Let's say if it's like this. Black to move. This actually is losing. The result of a king and two pawn on the same rank, two files apart versus a lone king, usually depends on whether or not the stronger side can sacrifice one of his pawns, using the time gained to bring his king into the game and create a winning king and pawn against king, like how we looked at in previous parts of this book. So he probably will lose one of the pawns almost certainly, but can he still achieve a winning king and pawn endgame at the end? So let's take a look at this. This is the same position as the previous one, but our king is on f6 instead of g6. That's the only difference.
Okay.
And this is enough to actually be a win. King e5. Again, this is the only logical move, because if you go around here, I can go defend it, then I'll be up 2 pawns for nothing and win.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have to try this. The only move for white is to push it, so if we take, we can queen. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go back. And here, but now we can achieve a winning king and pawn endgame. Like this. And our king is 2 squares in front of the pawn. So as we already know from previous parts of the book, it's a win. So what you were saying earlier about how black has to take the e-pawn is correct. In this situation, black took the h-pawn.
Because you
had to, right.
Position.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so thereby allowing white this winning variation. But there's nothing black could do about it.
Always sack the h-pawn. Hello, Karen and Spitzer. Is that... I can't... Oh, a 9? I can't see with the...
One in.
Oh, 1 in.
Yeah, that neon green is killer.
The neon green is hard. Why are pawns called juicers? Hey, working class hero, what's going on?
I don't know why they're called juicers, because they're not. Or is this like a joke where you're going to say the punchline? I don't know.
I think they were saying earlier that's a nickname.
I guess because you squeeze your opponent with them. I don't know. Just trying the best I can with what I got. All right, so let's look at a different example. We'll push these guys all back. Boop, boop, boop. There you go. If the pawns get to the 5th rank, like we see here, then unless the defending king can immediately capture one of the pawns, black's going to lose. Here's the rule. King and 2 pawns on the 5th rank, 2 files apart versus a lone king, is an easy win for the pawns.
Yeah, I think somebody was asking that. Maybe it was toilet break. Somebody can't.
Well, then we'll see exactly how. The problem is you just don't have time to do all the stuff that we wanted to do earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Check. Got you. Now if you take, you're in the square, but not exactly because the board runs out.
Yeah.
And this wouldn't work 1 file or 1 rank back, because you would be able to catch the pawn, because it would have further to go.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's over. One of the pawns is going to queen for sure, no matter what you do. We're getting a queen. Like here and there. Or this is the obvious one.
Mm-hmm.
Or here and there. Yeah, there's no way to stop both the pawns at this point. So yeah, the pawns in the 5th rank are too close to queening. The black king can't stop them because of that. Reading that chat.
Yeah. It's a joke from the terrible guy from Pog Champs.
Oh. I don't know about that.
Squirrely has pet names for his pieces. Pawns are called juicers because when they reach the last rank, they get roided up into a queen.
Roided? I don't understand that.
I was thinking something not nice.
All right, so here we go. Here, now they're 3 files apart. A little bit more, a little extra.
Mm-hmm.
Black to move. Here's a rule. If the pawns are 3 or more files apart, and not yet on the 5th rank, the defender loses unless he can immediately capture the pawns. 3 files apart is too far apart.
Okay.
Here, let me do this and then make a legal move. Okay. Here, h5, king e6. Obviously, it's the same as usual. If takes, here is going to win. So king e6, check. And here we saw this idea before. We'll jettison the pawn. Typically, this would be, we're on the same rank as the pawn. That's usually enough to catch it, but it's too short of a distance. It's not a square anymore. It's a rectangle.
Mm-hmm.
So he could try this. But now it's too easy, as you could guess. So to sum up our observations about self-defending kingless pawns, connected pawns are always defending each other. Okay, that's true. Pawns that are one file apart on any rank can usually defend themselves, unless the king arrives to shuttle one of them off the board. Down off the board. Weird sentence. The defender has his best survival chances if the pawns are 2 files apart. However, if those pawns are in the 5th rank or further, the game is resignable, unless one of the pawns can be instantly captured. Pawns that are 3 or more files apart on any rank are too much for the defending king to handle. So 2 connected pass pawns versus a lone king almost always wins easily. The only time connected pawns pose a problem is if one of them is the rook pawn. Let's look at an example where it's not a rook pawn, just to see how easy we can win it. Bloop. Bloop.
Do you think Magnus knows all these? Yes. And
Yeah.
then some. He said smiley.
Black to play. There's no rook pawn here, so black could resign.
Hey, Grandmaster Cool.
Here. There. Here. The end. I'm gonna queen for sure now. But the difficulty level goes up if we make them rook pawns. Here, make them one rook pawn. For example, put this here, like that. Black to move. So here white wins, but you have to know a little something to win it. Here. So here's the problem. We can't just walk up here because it'll be stalemate. Right?
Mm.
Yeah, don't play king c6 stalemate. A lot of players try this too, and then stalemate like this. So we can't win in such a straightforward way as we saw. So king c5, king b7. And yes, Centipede knows about it. We have to give away our a-pawn. Queen. Or anything. Takes. And then king c6. Taking the diagonal opposition. And we've already seen that this wins. Nice. So the key to this endgame, and many other king and pawn endgames, is to give up the a-pawn. White does 2 things here. He avoids stalemate by doing this. You can't get stalemated. And he forces black to give white the opposition. I get a little text massage. And in fact, that's why this is a famously a drawn position with a bishop here instead of a pawn. This position's a draw, believe it or not. White can't make any progress here because you can't promote your bishop and make them take it there.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to give up your bishop, you go here, but then they'll take here. You can't get opposition. So this position's actually a draw. You know, you could try it out if you want, but eventually you'll try this, and then here, but then I get opposition because you had to give up on b8 instead of a8. Yeah. Yeah, bishop is a draw there. Let's see, anything else he says? Blah, blah, blah. All right. Tactical bombs. This is the next section here.
User says, opposition explained most of the stuff in the pawn endgame, right?
Yeah. Hey, Indo Queen. Yeah, that's opposition's pretty important for winning king and pawn endgames. But we discussed that in earlier parts, so you have to check out our YouTube if you missed it. Although I think you might have seen it. I don't know. Hard to remember.
Yeah, I can't remember if he was here, but hey, Indo Queen, how's it going?
Nice. Any poetic stuff you missed?
I think he's filtering all that out.
All right. It's
Yeah,
tough.
the video on demands are only kept around for 2 weeks for Twitch
Mhm.
affiliates. So some of them are still on my channel, Twitch channel, but you can also go to the Chess Club YouTube channel, which I think is linked on my Twitch page. I'm not sure. Anyway, they're around.
In King and Pawn Endgames, there are quite a few tactical breaks. Some pretty cool that we must be aware of. Yeah, we'll actually talk about more complex tactical ideas in part 9. So that's way in the future. The distant future, the year 2000.
Good night, John. John, yeah, thanks for the game.
Yeah, that was a good game.
Yeah,
We should have had him at the end, though.
I know, I messed it up. I was panicking.
Always panic, that's what I say. It's like when Peter was doing the thing from Taken, you know, when Liam Neeson's talking to the guy, or he's actually talking to his daughter, and he's like, all right, don't panic, like hide under the bed or whatever, because like some guy was coming in to take her.
Oh.
And then when Peter does it, he's like, okay, panic, take short breaths, hide under the bed, but keep your feet sticking out. Classic Peter. All right, so let's say it's white's to play here, I guess. Yeah. So black feels pretty confident here. I mean, he's got a pass pawn and white doesn't, right? And it's outside pass pawn technically, and his king's better. So usually all that stuff's enough to win, but obviously white's winning here with, frankly, g5. White has a 2 against 1 pawn majority, so let's put it to good use, huh? And now we can break through, sacrificing a pawn, but making a queen in the process. And just in time, we can save the check, take it, and not let him queen. And obviously win.
Mm-hmm.
Or also like any move, like winning. Check here, win. So, gotta take advantage of those breakthroughs. This one is pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that, you know, in a more complicated position you might overlook. Here's a famous example. I've seen this one quite a bit in my day. Probably you've seen it at least 5 or 6 times, I'm guessing. Alright, so here we go. White's a pawn up and should win the game by using our favorite chicken coop technique. You remember from last time. Or, you know, it was maybe 2 or 3 parts ago. But let's say white plays the move king g5. Normal looking move, but actually doesn't get the job done. Black to play and win.
Let's see. Seems like they usually just push their B pawn. Like the one in the middle.
That is the one in the middle. Then what?
Then what would white do? Well, if they try to block it up, and if they don't take, then black will take the next move and queen.
Yeah.
So they have to take, I guess, with the C pawn. I don't know if it matters. And then, it's hard for me to visualize.
You got it.
All right, C takes B, then, yeah, and then I guess you push the A3.
Yes. And after you take it?
And then you just push the C pawn.
Exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, B3 is the winning idea. And if you take with the C pawn, A3 wins. Followed by C3. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
If you take with the A pawn, then you do it the other way. C3, followed by A3.
Yeah.
Nice. So king G5 was a blunder, frankly, obviously. He should play B3 himself. I'm guessing. Yes. That was on the next page, but it's the only thing that makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you don't want to play c3 and hope for like this, then white wins. Because black will play a3. Oops.
Mm-hmm.
And now white loses again.
Yeah.
Take here, we take there. So you got to watch out for that breakthrough as well. So you go here, then we can take this. Now obviously you don't want to take this way and give him a pass pawn. Got to keep it symmetrical, so he doesn't get a pass pawn here.
Mm.
We could even do it like this, and then we can do our classic technique that we already learned about actually.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's so far away. We know that once we're 2 squares in front, we win. So
Yeah.
we can just stop here.
I hear some noise.
All right, it must be a grandmaster.
Hey.
It is. It is a grandmaster.
At the car place today, they always call me Mr. Boyd,
Yeah.
and then the guy in line said, "Hi, Grandmaster."
Hmm.
I don't know who he was.
Oh,
I
it's
said,
Snap.
I said, "Here, I'm just Mr. Boyd."
Yeah, thank you.
That's funny.
Some chocolate.
I'm sure it's good for life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went shopping and just came here because why go home? So
Sorry
stuff's
for
in
the
my car.
rattling noise.
Hmm?
I said sorry
Oh.
for the rattling noise.
What's that
Do you want
rattle?
one?
Yes.
I don't know you, but yes.
Yeah, these are so good.
My
Thank
kid,
you for
Ben,
sharing.
Ben buys these for me, and I try to hide them in the kitchen, and my kids always find them and eat them.
I don't blame them.
Yeah, they're good.
How you doing?
Giggle Master Benzu.
All right. I'm sorry for eating on the stream here.
I'm not sorry for that. All right, let's talk about triangulation.
Mm.
Mm.
Man, these are so good. These.
Yes.
Mm.
I was just showing them what we were eating.
Naka lost a funny game to Fedoseev today. He was
Yeah.
winning in the title Tuesday thing, and then he just hung all his pieces. He hung a piece, and then like Danny Wrench is like, "What's happening? Why is he hanging a piece everywhere?"
Oh no.
And then he was mad.
No.
So Fedoseev won the match.
Dang.
He won the tournament.
I'm a fan of Fedoseev.
Yeah, he beat, I think, Nepo also. Somebody else good.
Dang.
Somebody good and Naka like Nepo.
I mean, Fedosev's no joke.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? He's like 27-10, 27-20 maybe?
Yeah.
Triangulation. Let's see. Triangulation, the name of a very small, often uncomplicated maneuver. Even though a lot of people think it's like really complicated and fancy.
It sounds fancy.
Oh, you fancy, huh?
It's Squidward's favorite maneuver.
Is that true?
Because it's fancy.
When Ben does the rating climb,
I'm going to go work.
hey, are you going to play any Title Tuesday? Kangaroo wants to know.
Obviously not.
You have this book, Danny Chess? Loom like a grandmaster. I like it when he plays Title Tuesday as well, but he doesn't seem interested. Anyway, okay.
So here, this is our first realistic multi-pawn king and pawn endgame that we've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this could totally happen in a game.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. And it looks pretty complicated. Basically, there's only 2 questions we have to ask. One is, can white win the e-pawn? And can black successfully penetrate to f4?
Mm-hmm.
And then that would be maybe good for black, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
All right, so let's say, first of all, that it's black to play. We'll look at both.
Okay.
But we'll have black to play first. We'll play king e5, as you might imagine. We're trying to get king e4. If black tries to bring it around town, like that,
Mm-hmm.
white plays king e3 and wins the e4 pawn. We can calculate a little further just for posterity's sake. Yeah, we can just do it like this. I mean, even this wins.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, maybe not. I don't think it does. But anyways, this is... This is like the trebuchet we were talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
But then we'll just make a move, because he can't take this pawn. He has to take this pawn, and then game over.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not going to work. So let's try king e5. Trebuchet Trent strikes again. I don't understand. The chat's too complicated for me.
I look, I have chocolate in my tea.
Oh no, there's nothing worse than that.
I'm not going to smile anymore.
I don't like to smile anyway. I just look sad. King e3. Taking opposition, and this forces the king backwards. This is the only legal move, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here. So white wants to just go like this, and that would easily win. But he stopped him, right? This is actually what I was calculating earlier. And I thought that it wins for white, and it does. Has black stopped white's plan, he asks? Obviously not. White to play, how do you win it? No smiling on this stream. It's a chess stream anyway. So who needs to smile? Oh, GM Benjamin Feingold is hosting. With one viewer.
Yay.
Stalemate Steven and Trebuchet Trent are our endgame friends. That is pretty funny. See, the chat doesn't know the right answer here.
Let's see.
Come on, chat. He's not live yet, but he is live. Oh, Pat Sirius coming in with the hard knowledge. Pat Sirius always gets the answers right. He's like 800. I don't get it. What's going on there?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's suggesting ridiculous things. Yeah, king and pawn games are tough. You have
Can
like
you- can
4
you-
legal moves. And still people can't get it right.
Can't you bring the king around town, like bring it around? Why will that not work? King b2.
King b2. I guess I would play king b6.
Oh, okay, you go back.
And then when you play king a3, I'll play king a5. I don't want to have to play king a5 first and then you play king a3. That's too easy.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I mean, actually, every move wins here, but you're just going to have to eventually play the right idea. Which the chat finally figured out after I said Pet Sirius was right. You got to play b4.
Oh.
Check. Exclam. Very instructive idea. After takes king b3, black's in Zugzwang. And loses back his
Oh,
pawn.
yeah. Darn. Go Pet Sirius. I'm gonna eat this other chocolate.
And then you're going to win with the classic technique we already saw earlier. But he still plays it out here for some reason.
Only b4 works, frowny. What? Why is that a frowny?
I don't know. Mainly, etc.
Let me
How
get-
about b4? Pam's right. Good job, Pam. You got it.
Let me do another one of these.
Okay, so we saw here that if it's black to play, it's actually a win for white. If black goes here, that's what we saw.
Mm-hmm.
That loses. If black doesn't go there, we just go take the pawn. You can't stop me because I have these squares controlled. So you'll have to walk away, and then I'll go king e3. You'll go back, and I'll win your pawn. And I'll win the game. So black loses here no matter what, if it's black's turn. Now let's say it's white to play. Flip that script. Now many people would play king e3 here, right?
Mm-hmm.
But after king e5, black takes the opposition, forces white to go backwards, and then black plays king f4, and is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
So king e3 would be a blunder. So the direct approach is a horrible failure in our diagram position. However, white can turn the tables by playing king d2 or f2. When king e5, king e3 leads us to the position we just saw. If it was black to play, black plays king e5, king e3. It's the same thing. So white steps to the side, then moves diagonally forward to create a small triangle. That's all the triangulation is. Yeah. So both of the moves win, I'm pretty sure. Just making sure, but it seems like it. Yeah, he says king d2 would also win.
Hey, Mepex, trying to learn.
Now, as we saw, king e5, king e3 loses for black, and moving the king backwards loses to king e3 takes. So the best try is to play e3, just sacrificing the pawn. Gonna lose it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're gonna take it, right?
Yeah, I would assume.
Actually, a blunder.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, after takes king e5, black is gonna get into the position wherever you let me in. So, for example, if you go here, I go like this.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you don't even have to count here. It seems like you might have to count, but I'm in the square of your pawn. So you're not going to be able to move your pawn and queen, and I am going to queen. So that's a win for black. Here, white can't do anything, and black just wins the pawns.
I feel certain
So king
this
takes
has
even
happened
loses.
to me.
Right, you got to
Many
be a little
times.
tricky here and play king e2. A little bit more subtle. Put the b in subtle. King f3 also wins, by the way. But now black is busted. If black walks away, we can take the pawn, and then they can't go into opposition. If black plays king e5, then we have opposition. And we got him.
Mm-hmm.
So rule, basic triangulation is a maneuver where the king steps to the side and then moves forward diagonally, thus losing a move and gaining the opposition, typically gaining the opposition.
Mm-hmm. I'll make sure I didn't miss anything.
I read all that.
Okay.
Yeah, Admiral Akbar would say it's a trap, right? Yeah, what is that, Star Wars? I don't even know. I don't care about Star Wars, I gotta say.
Me neither.
All right, let's talk about outflanking. Outflanking is a simple but useful tool to know. With it, a player can make inroads into the position that were not otherwise possible. Admittedly, this does often cost the opposition, but opposition is only a means to an end, not an end of itself. That's true. Rule, outflanking is a maneuver where the stronger side's king moves to the side, placing a file between the kings, sometimes even giving the opponent the opposition. This allows the outflanking king to march forwards towards the target without allowing the enemy king to step in front and take direct opposition. All right, let's look at a not very practical example. There we go. All done. White to play. White to move and reach f8, g8, or h8 by force. Believe it or not, a close study of this position and its correct handling will teach the student the finer points of opposition, outflanking, and triangulation. White to play has the opposition. His goal is to reach f8, g8, or h8. Those are the squares that are in red right now. In at most 17 moves. Why did he give me that time restriction? Black will constantly try to stop this by using opposition as a defensive device. Alright, let's see how he does it. King a2, exclam. The only way to take opposition. The more direct path fails because it allows black to take opposition. King b8, opposition. Distant opposition, right?
Mm-hmm.
The odd number of squares in front. Opposition. Opposition. Mainly, etc. You can tell now that he's not getting to these squares. Okay, king a8. Or king a2, rather. Now, king b8, a fine defensive move. If king a3, now we'll get opposition again, like this. Or maybe even king c7 will work. Just reading. Well, anyways, this is opposition, so that's all you need to know. Right, like that. Etc. So you're going to have to be a little bit sneakier than that. Here we go. King c8. King c2. Still heading for the king side. Instead, white could try to outflank black. But at this moment, outflanking wouldn't exactly achieve our goal. Like, let's say we play king a3. So this is the idea of outflanking. You put a file between you and the king, or each of the kings, and you could try to come around the side. It doesn't quite work here, though. Here, and we talked about how this is opposition because the corners are all the same color.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we talked about that back in part 2 or so. And then we get opposition here.
Yeah, that's right, S.M. Rosny.
There. Yeah, exactly right. And then you're not allowed to go to these squares now.
Yeah, still won't work.
Right. So in this position, king a3 is not going to get it done. You got to try king c2. King d8. King d2. King e8. It seems like we're not making much progress yet. But hold on to your hat. Because again, we have to get to one of these 3 squares.
Right.
So we can actually let him have opposition as long as our king's on the F file and their king's on the H file. Then we can walk up. King H8. White is now at the optimum file since his king stands right in the middle of his target squares. Let's get it. King G7. Black could take the opposition by playing King H7. But after King F4, opposition, King F5, we're going to get to F8 if you go here. Or if you go here, we'll do this. And we're outflanking you now. And King F8. So King G7. King G3 exclam. Satisfied that he's advanced 1 rank, white retakes the opposition. You don't want to play King F4, King F6. Then you're not going to get here anymore. Right? There's no way. So don't go for King F4. King G3. King F7. And King H4. Again, outflanking. If King H7, King F4 would be obviously the same, pretty much. And yeah, if you go here, we already saw that. Similar, but with the kings reversed. So King G6, King G4. And now you have to step to one side and we can, move in. And we did it. We got to one of these 3 squares. Next turn, by force. Please study this information on opposition and outflanking carefully. Don't let the scientific names scare you away from learning something that's easy to understand and highly useful. Also, this diagram, this position here, is fun to show your friends. Well, if you hate them, I guess. I hate you, so let's look at this. All right, that's all for the king and pawn endgames for this this chapter or this part. So we're gonna move on to rook and pawn endgames for this part. Rook endgames.
I'm gonna need to look at that separately because I just practice it a little bit. Because I mean, in a game, in a blitz game, I'd just be panicking, not knowing all.
Yeah. All right, let's take another step into deepening our understanding of Rook endgames.
Hey, I have almost 3,000 followers.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's 2999.
Wow, that is pretty close. Come on, one more follow, you guys. Let's go. Let's get it.
That's right, Seth. Yeah, where'd they all go?
All right, we'll look at Rook and 2 connected passed pawns against a Rook. A Rook endgame where one side is up 2 connected passed pawns is usually, as you might imagine, a clear win. But surprisingly, it can be quite time-consuming, and success is often dependent on you knowing some key ideas and avoiding the many stalemate tricks that are lurking in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
This endgame occurs quite a lot, and therefore the ideas involved in herding your pawn safely down the board must be mastered.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What did you say?
Go ahead, keep going.
Okay. This is going to be this is the most complicated situation in the book so far. So we'll have to look over this information slowly and not get frustrated. It'll take a bit of time before we master it.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I've had blitz games where I failed to win Rook and 2 pawns against Rook.
Oh, really?
I saw Carlson against Aronian, and Aronian failed to win Rook and 2 pawns against Rook with 2 connected passed pawns.
Wow.
That's not so
That
easy.
seems hard. Hey, Weird Gus, how's it going?
Give black a Rook, probably. There we go. White to play. Connected Rook and Knight pawns are the hardest case, because obviously it's a Rook pawn. And you have more stalemate tricks.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't do stuff like, you can't give up. Like, sometimes you can, like, play a pawn move where they could play Rook takes pawn, but they can't because it's a losing king and pawn endgame. But that's not going to happen if the Rook pawn is left over. So it's the most restricting in this way. You can't make a move that lets the guy take this pawn for free, where sometimes you will be able to do that.
Okay.
Let's see. Rule. The trick to making life easy in such a position is to advance your pawns together, so your king has shelter. Your pawns can defend one another, and blockades can be avoided. You don't want to march one pawn down all by himself. Useful advice. Also make sure your king and pawns are in close contact. A team effort is needed. Alright, so in this position, White's h-pawn is a little bit ahead of its forces. So White's first order of business is to patiently move his king and g-pawn forward, so they're all connected like one big family.
Mm-hmm.
King h3 to play g4. There's not much black can do, so you can play king f6. We can play g3. g4 is also good. Rook f1. So now here's the defense from the weaker side. They want to check with the rook in the back,
Right.
of course. And just keep checking you, then we got you. Also possible is rook a4. And then king h4. Now g5 should also win, but you don't want to cut your own king off like that, because then you might have to like bring your rook around and block, and then bring the king up, and then continue from there. So that's not great technique. Just bring your king up to help. King h6. We can break down that blockade though. h6.
If they do come down there and start trying to check you.
Yeah, we'll look at that too.
Okay.
Just do one at a time. Here. Check, and here. And we'll see this kind of position later in the main line. After rook f1. Alright, so white to play. Let's play king g4. That's a good move. There's no check from the side, and there's no check from the back.
Mm-hmm.
And we can check with our rook as well, forcing the opponent's king back. That's what you want to do. Rook f2. Check. Forcing the king to relinquish control of g5. In rook endgames, it's always a good idea to keep your rook as far away from the enemy king as possible. We talked about that before, even in part 1.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Avisar.
Now we'll play king h4. This prepares to push our g-pawn, and we can block this check. And if they check from the back, we can step up to g5 now, in that case. King f7, g4. Remember to make sure that your pawns can shield your king from checks. That's true. That's a good thing to remember. Gotta shield those checks. Check. As usual, we'll lead with our rook pawn. g5 actually might not win. I think, yeah. We'll check. And now the king doesn't have any good hiding places. So this is the thing to avoid. We don't want this scenario where we can't move our king up.
Right.
Even if that does still win, you don't want to do that. We saw that earlier we had that option too and we avoided it. Even though it actually did win earlier. So, let's see, where was I? h6 check. Also, an alternative is rook a7 check. Because he can't step up, we'll mate him in one. Which is kind of nice. Yeah, and if king f6 to stop the king from coming up, we can check now. We'll have time to move our other pawn so we don't get checked here because they're in check. King f5, rook check. King e6, rook f6 check. And then h6. So now if they check us, we can step up still. If they check from behind, we can zig and the zag, as Karen would like to say. So that's a good winning technique. But h6 gets it done too. And here, so now we can answer both checks. This is important. If they check here, we go there. And he's got no more checks. And if we check here, we got g5. So hopefully you're becoming familiar with this pattern, allowing the g-pawn to guard against the checks. It suggests this is the best defense. And go like this. And rook c5. Keeping the pawn pinned is the best chance. Because it's crunch time now. So if you try to like go back and defend with checks, I can check you and then check you again, and that's not great. That's mate. Well, it's great for white, I guess. So you can't go from behind anymore. Check here. King h8. So black sticks his king in the corner, hoping for some stalemate tricks. For example, if he plays also king g8, you have to watch out for stalemate tricks. Check is a blunder. King h8. Now you can go here trying to set up for mate, but this is going to be a draw. We can just check and then sack our rook for stalemate. So this is one reason why it's more difficult to win with the rook pawn, because you get some stalemate tricks here.
Hey, James Laws. How's it going? Hey, Prophylaxis.
Oh, but with king g8, we can win easily by playing rook g7 check. Obviously, he should try to keep his king in front. And rook e7. Again, don't step up and stalemate the guy. He'll play like rook takes pawn then. Play rook e7. And this actually transposes to what we'll look at. If he plays king h8 here. We'll play rook e7. This is the winning technique. That would be the same position we just looked at. If king g8 check, king h8, rook e7. This is a key idea. So what's the points of this move? There are 3 points. 1, white would like to bring his king to f7, so you can't check me from the side anymore. Right? 2, sometimes the white king will go to f6, and we can even block with the rook on the 6th rank, like this, if he's checking us. 3, once white's g-pawn gets to g6, back rank mate will be threatened. And to stop this, black will have to pull his rook to the 1st rank, where white can win by marching the king to f7 or d7. Although still, maybe with f7, there's some stalemate tricks you have to watch out for. So let's look over this solution. If it sounds too complicated, it'll all become clear. Rook c8. There are other tries, like let's say king g8, king g6, check, of course, check again, check a third time. But this is why rook e7 is good. Now we can block it. It reminds us of the Lucina position when we were trying to get our king out from in front of the pawn, and then he kept checking. And the idea was to play rook f4 so that we could walk our king out and block with the rook vertically. Here we're blocking with the rook horizontally.
Right, yeah, it does the same.
Let's see.
Hey, Lady Buell.
Rook c8 can't allow us to trade rooks, of course. Goes here. Okay. Check and king e7 is going to help white. Like, white would like to play king e7 here, but then you'll check me. So I'll go here, and I'll try to play king e7. If you check, I can block you.
Mm.
And I'm threatening mate, or I'm trading rooks. And obviously trading rooks is going to win. So rook d6 is a good move. And, yeah, here... And he can't do anything, so we'll just go here. And now we're going to win. You can check us, we can block. And then we're threatening mate. And if you bring your rook back to stop mate, I'll trade rooks and win. So that's the winning idea. So a couple of subtle moves there. That's why it's not so easy to win in a blitz game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems tricky.
So let's say rook c8 first. This is the main line of defense.
Good night, George.
So king, rook, knight pawn, and rook pawn on the same side of the board versus king and rook give the defender some stalemate tricks, thanks to the rook pawn's eternal pain in the ass factor. That's what he gave. I didn't make that up. Yeah. Actually, he gives us some more variations here. In this position, we played rook d6.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, we can actually win with h7 check. And here, like that. But you have to be careful with this because there are some stalemate tricks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So here, if it's white to play, it's going to be a quick mate. However, if our rook is already on d7, it's going to be a draw. Let's set up that position. If it's black to move there. Here. Like this. So it's pretty similar. Right. But the rook is in a different square. In this diagram, in this position, black's king has no legal moves. However, due to white's rook being on the 7th rank instead of the 6th, where it stops 6th rank checks, black can force a draw by sacrificially throwing his rook into the volcano. Check. King f5. And rook f6 check. Exclam. Very insistent. If you take here, that's not going to work, I think. That does work, right? If I check, you could just take this. And if check, you can just block it. So this should draw too, right? Seems like it. But he just gives this and doesn't say rook takes g6 draws. But anyways, this makes sense because if you step away, I'll take the pawn for free. And if you protect the pawn, then I'll take it with check. So that should be an easier way to draw just with checks. And stalemate. So you have to be careful when you're playing like this scenario. You have to make sure your opponent can't sacrifice the rook with checks and force you to lose a pawn and draw the position. Okay, so...
Hey, Sandy. Yeah, it's pretty tricky, man. I'm definitely going to have to practice this.
Mm-hmm. Now let's go back to what we were looking at before.
I wouldn't either, Avisar. I wouldn't expect it to be so difficult.
Right.
I would love to see that game sometime with...
Aronian?
Yeah, and and Carlson.
All right, so we'll play g6 in this position. It was actually, I don't have the notation anymore because I had to set up a new board. But rook c8 was black's last move, and then g6, not allowing any stalemates. Now, before it was a little, you had to be worried about this because, he can check from the side, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here, we don't want to allow stalemate, and we're so close to queening that this is going to be able to win, as we'll see. So here's some useful advice. Only push your pawn to h7 if you're 100% sure you've avoided the stalemate sacrifice tricks. Otherwise, don't play h7 if there's any hope that they can do that. All right, so rook c5 check. I have to make a black's move. Check. And we're threatening mate all the time, so here. And this is actually why, so in the other positions, like with the pawns and king further back,
Mm-hmm.
this would be a problem for white because the white king's cut off. But here, black can't just make a random move and keep the king cut off because we're threatening mate.
Right.
So black has to either keep checking or going to the back rank. And the idea is to go here and there. Or again, here and there, but you got to watch out for stalemate tricks in that case. Like here, they could check you, for example. Where you don't have to take, you just go back. But okay, that's not going to make progress then. So rook a8. Now if you go here, he'll check you from the side a bunch. And if you bring it around to f7, we'll check you again, trying to sack the rook for mate, or for stalemate. Here. Here. Now if we play rook f8 check, trying for stalemate, we can just go here. And wins. This is our next move. We win guaranteed after the rook trade. So instead we can try rook g8. And g7 check. Don't play rook e7, rook f8. Then you're going to have to escape and then go around and around and do like what we did already where you play here and then bring the king up there. Instead, g7 check. King h7. Rook e7. Now there's no stalemate. That's going to happen, of course. And black is busted now. We're going to trade rooks. If you take my pawn, I'll take your rook. So the best that black can try is this. Now we're going to queen. So we got to check. No more checks. And no more stalemate. And queening is forced next turn. So now black can actually resign. So this is a tough example. But let's take a look at the step-by-step winning process. Advancing your pawns together so your king has shelter. Your pawns can defend one another, and blockades can be avoided. Don't let one pawn go too far down by himself. Make sure your king and pawns are in close contact.
What if, I'm sorry. So in that position, what if they went rook f7 check?
Take it.
Take it.
It's not stalemate, you can take this.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Make sure your pawns can shield your king from checks. Be patient. Push the enemy king back slowly, always making sure the above conditions have been met. Once you force the enemy king to the back rank, then that's a scenario where you can have the two pawns abreast and your king is behind them.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can't keep your king cut off because it's checkmate all the time. And you can move your rook a couple files to the side of your pawns that your king can sneak in front or in between the rook and the pawns, like how we saw in this example.
Mm-hmm.
So then your plan is to place both your pawns in the 6th rank, like we saw, bring your king to the 7th rank, your rook already on the 7th rank to protect against the checks. Give check by moving your rook to the 8th rank, protected by your king on the 7th rank, and force the exchange of rooks. King and 2 pawns versus king should be a baby win for you at this point. Warning, only move your h-pawn to h7 if you're 100% sure you've prevented the many stalemate tricks that are found in these positions. Gotta be patient.
Hey Jimbo, how's it going?
And Silman recommends you to play this endgame again with all this in mind on your own to try to make sure that you understand how to win rook and 2 pawns against rook.
Hey, that's what I said.
Yeah, definitely. Come on, Jimbo. She just said rook f7 takes. It's not stalemate. Almost, though.
Yeah, I was asking about that. And
Pawns don't move backwards. It's true.
No, you don't need to
No
say
problem.
you're sorry. I just asked the same
Yeah, probably
question.
you just showed up right after she asked it.
And it took me a minute to understand.
All right, let's talk about the 7th rank. Everyone's heard that rooks belong on the 7th rank. However, can you explain why a rook isn't equally delighted to be on the 6th or 8th rank? The appeal of the 7th rank is twofold. Usually the enemy pawns are all on the 2nd rank, or mostly. So placing the rook there, it targets them. And usually the defending king is on the 1st rank.
Right.
So if you put your rook on the 7th rank, then the king is out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it sets up even for mating ideas. So let's look at this position where black will be an entire pawn ahead. But his rook won't be as good.
So pretty.
It's like Christmas lights. And we'll put his poor rook on a8. Black to move. So it's black's turn and black's a pawn up, but he's just lost here. This position shows us the dominance that a simple rook jump to the 7th rank bestows. Black's rook is doomed to stay on a8 so it can defend a7. You can never lose this pawn, you'll lose the game immediately then.
Right.
No matter what. So black's king can't leave the king side here as well because of the rules of chess. And also if you step like too far away and you try to go over here, I'll just take your pawn and then my king will go take these pawns, mainly, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So black's a pawn ahead but completely lost. Naturally f5 is met by en passant. So we'll go here. Rook b7. King e8. King c3 exclam. White avoids king d3 check. And rook d7. That's the way that black can get his rook out of the deal. King e5, king e7. It's actually should be, I'm guessing, a draw. Though I'd rather have black. I guess black's pawn up, but I don't think you can make use of it in that king and pawn endgame. So the idea of king c3 is it's actually zugzwang. If, well, obviously you can't move your rook now because I'll just win your pawn. And if you move your king away from this, I'll take it. If you move this pawn, I'll en passant you. So the only reasonable move is king f8. That's the only move that anybody would play. But now after king d3, you can't check and go here because I'll take your rook when you go there. You can still check. That's true. King e4 and check, trying to go here, right? Although actually more challenging is rook d4 check. White still wins, for example. Here. Rook d7 exclam. So this is actually still pretty tough.
Yeah.
It seems like, it could go either way, but black does lose this. So even though he's 2 pawns down, things are guaranteed white's victory because of 2 aspects of this position. The king is going to help. This king is not helping. That's 1. And 2, the passed pawn is more advanced for white than black's are. For example, h4, h3, h2, and black can resign. We're going to stop your pawn, and we're going to just queen our pawn without too much calculation. So rook d4 still ends up losing, although it's an interesting try, and if you were playing the game, you'd want to make it as tough as possible and unclear for your opponent. As you can.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say he goes here to try to do the same idea we saw. The difference is our king is further advanced now, so we can go here, threatening the rook for a win. You just take the rook. But if you trade, then that's not acceptable either, clearly. Try this. And now it's over. I'm just going to go eat all the pawns and queen.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. So yeah, the rook on the 7th is pretty good. We all knew that, but this is how a very striking illustration.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's look at another one. Maybe I'll ask what you guys might play.
Yeah. How long to the end of this section? I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, this is like the last part of the rook one. And then there's
Okay.
a minor piece endgame section, which we might have to wait till next time. I don't know.
Maybe.
That's the last part of this
We can see
section.
how it
Of this
shapes up.
part,
I
I
was
mean.
just curious.
Party of the first part.
All right. Because he'll probably start right at 8 since he got here so early.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ben's gonna stream at 8, and his stream's gonna be, I think, a good one. He's going to show one game for each world champion. So maybe, I'm not sure how many world champions, maybe 15? Or am I wrong?
Well, Kasparov was 13.
Well, there was some argument too about a couple of them.
Well, I don't think he's going to talk about the FIDE champions.
No.
So he'll probably, there's 13, then Kramnik, then Anand, and Magnus. That's it. So there's 16.
Okay. So anyway.
I think that's it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good stream. It's gonna be one game for each world champion. On well, I'll raid there.
Clumsy beard. That's what he is.
Clumsy, yeah, clumsy.
Neon beard.
On GM Benjamin Feingold's channel.
Yeah. All right, so here we go. It's white to move. What do you guys think he would do?
Okay, you said white to move.
That's what I said.
All right, let me see.
Making sure it is white to move there. A lot of times he tricks us. It's good. Scottish Demon Goat with the nonsense answer. Oh, but I knew it was a typo. It must have been, right? Because his move made no sense. So he corrected it for us.
Maybe rookie 1.
Cut that king off.
Mm-hmm.
But remember what the title of this section is. It's all about the 7th rank.
Oh, that's
Like
true.
how we did last time.
Oh, yeah.
Remember the rook was on the 7th
Oh,
rank?
okay. Well, I guess if you can get it on up there, you get a check, too. I
That's
was
true.
just worried about the king coming on down.
Right. And, well, so what were the 2 advantages of putting our rook on the 7th rank that we talked about at the beginning of this part? It was that your opponent's pawns are on the 7th rank usually.
And there are no pawns this time.
Right. And also that your opponent's king is usually on the 1st rank.
Mm-hmm.
So putting your rook
Oh.
on the 7th rank cuts them off.
Oh, maybe rook d6.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's almost the same idea. It's
Exactly.
just
Everything
right,
shifted up. The
Yeah.
pawns, the bottom of the pawn chains here, are on the 1st or on the 6th rank instead of the 7th rank.
Mm-hmm.
And the king is not on his 1st rank. The king is on his 7th rank, his 2nd rank as well.
Right.
So rook d6 is, in essence, putting the rook on the 7th rank.
Mm-hmm.
Where actually putting rook on the 7th rank is a bad move. That just helps the king up, like you were
Come
saying.
down, yeah.
Then we could go here and take the pawn. And you're not attacking anything.
Mm-hmm.
So rook d7 wouldn't make any sense there. Rook d6, like Scottish Demon Goat said, attacking the pawns and cutting off the king. That's the point of putting your rook on the 7th rank,
Mhm.
usually. So, rook e8, that's a desperate try. A lot of times you'll see that when a strong player is worse or losing in a rook and pawn endgame, they won't just passively defend their pawn they can't move. They'll instead sacrifice a pawn to get activity.
Right, yeah.
And that might be the best defense objectively, or even if anything loses, that's still the best defense in practice, because it makes it as tough for your opponent as possible. Let's say, however, we play passively, like this, and do nothing, because it's about all we can do. The problem is we'll play this and then that. Then we'll collect the pawn anyway.
Right.
So that's not going to help. You're going to lose your pawn no matter what. You might as well try rook e8. Another try it for counterplay, though, is king e7. Black's trying to give up the pawn and defend this pawn so he can move our rook and hopefully draw a pawn down. But white will win this, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
Takes. Don't forget about your king. Rook f8. If king c7, check here, this is not going to be a sufficient defense. Your king's stuck. Your rook can stop the pawn, but I'm just going to go there. You've got nothing to do at all. Easy win. So he goes for rook f8. You could take the pawn, that probably wins, but rook f6 is the simplest. Yeah, this leaves no counterplay for the opponent. That's the way to have technique. In rook endgames, it's always a good idea to deprive your opponent of counterplay by keeping his rook and or king caged and inactive whenever possible. Rook h8. Rook h4.
Hey,
Takes there.
Poshi.
Takes here. Check. Here. King c6 threatening mate. He has to avoid it. If you go here, I'll check you and queen. So king e8. We've seen this technique before, actually, in the two pawns for a rook, or 2 pawns and a rook against a rook. And now queening is unstoppable. So king e7, we saw that didn't get it done. Rook e8 is the text move. Rook f6 check exclam. This forces black to step to g7, so he doesn't get a passed g pawn. But now we can take here, and the king's further away from this part of the board. So we gained a tempo by doing that. Check. Force him to the back row. Don't care about those pawns. If you check, I can step here. You can try this, but that's also going to be a check. Queen. And you still have to be a little bit cautious here with white. You don't want to get... We looked at some examples earlier in the book when it's rook against pawn, and it wasn't enough to win, actually. But it's important to get our king as active as possible. If we can get our king here... This pawn's a goner. We don't have to waste time on that pawn. Right? This pawn is the only one that could ever do anything because we have the king's help.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So we got to make our king as good as possible with white. I assume it's this check, yes? Okay, now we can't really improve with white, so we might as well go take the pawn. And now this is a goner. And wins. So good technique there.
Man, it's cold in here.
I can turn it up again.
Oh, he'll get hot though.
Well, we'll be done soon.
That's true.
So then I'll turn it back down.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always a good idea to deprive your opponent of counterplay. Yes, that's true. No matter what. No matter what.
Definitely.
So what do you think? You want to do the last part, or
Or
maybe you could play a game or two, though?
I don't know how long it'll take. Oh, that looks long.
It does look kind of long, huh?
Probably don't have time, and I think he will start on time.
All right, so maybe you just play a game.
What is the next section called?
Minor peace endgames.
Oh, you said that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we're gonna stop with the silman for today, and then
Pick it up next time.
yeah, probably we'll pick it up. Maybe we can do a little bit longer stream tomorrow and do something else.